so we're going to get started with some really hard questions. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Justin Udom, born and raised in Hawaii.
We have to speak into the mic, even though we are mic'd.
Gotcha.
It's very confusing, I know.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Udom. I'm born and raised in Hawaii. Let's see, I went to college in the mainland in California and then came back. Ended up going to KCC Culinary School, graduated there as well. And then started my popsicle business a few years later. That's the shortest possible story possible. But yeah.
Awesome. Hard to compete with popsicles, man. Some feedback here. What's happening?
Yeah, what is happening?
Oh boy.
They're visiting.
Maybe try the other one, yeah. Let's investigate.
All right, check, check. All right, But anyway, Quinn Vittum, Executive Director of Reuse Hawaii. Does anyone know about Reuse? Maybe I don't even need to explain it. No? Okay, a couple people, cool. So we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to cultivating the circular economy. And we do that through various programs, but the main ones are our deconstruction service, where we take buildings apart in the opposite order that they're built in order to recover material for reuse and recycling. It's hilarious.
You just put it that way, in the opposite order that they're built.
And then we redistribute the material to the community as an affordable resource. We also do workforce development, so about a third of our staff come to us with barriers to employment. So we support those folks with training and employment opportunities. We're 18 years in, and I'm the founder, and it's been incredible to build something from the ground up. So stoked to share some of the stories with you folks. And I'm friends with Jeff.
Thanks, Quinn. Jeff Mikulina. I guess I'll use the title. I'm Executive Director of a group called Climate Hawaii, but really grateful to be here. Quinn is a hero of mine. Just met Justin. Excited to hear about his journey. I've been in Hawaii for about 26 years, largely leading sustainability organizations. First a group called the Sierra Club, a nonprofit focused on environmental sustainability, and then a group called Blue Planet Foundation, and we worked on climate and clean energy issues. So similar work that I'm doing today, wearing a few hats, but happy to dive into the questions.
Okay, so I guess let's just get started with kind of your journey to sustainability and how in each of your roles sustainability plays a part. So for some of you it's more obvious, and then for Justin, it's still very critical, I think, and maybe a little more interesting in terms of how that comes to be.
Maybe just to mix it up, I'll keep going. So, I never, growing up, it wasn't, I'm going to be an environmentalist or an advocate. I was going to be an engineer. I think as a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut like everyone else. I went to school for engineering at Illinois. And in that process, I sort of saw that we have the technology in so many cases. We have the engineering capacity. But what was lacking was both that underlying sort of cultural drive to do things more sustainably, the markets, and then the policy to make it happen. So that sort of led me a bit to doing more advocacy work. I thought I'd do that for a year or two, but kind of got the bug and was excited about just the potential of folks coming together and making change happen, and ended up doing it for a quarter century. But I grew up in Wisconsin, and I think I first had that feeling that the earth is changing, that humans are a force of nature, because we'd spend summers in the Mississippi River, and it was gorgeous, but we were just downriver from Minneapolis, and we would get all of their sewage, essentially. We were still kind of going through that period of cleaning stuff up, and in the newspaper every day in the summer, they would have, honestly, the fecal count for what's in the water. It never stopped us from going in the water, but it was just showing that we can affect these great systems that are much larger than us, that go well beyond boundaries. And climate change to me is that ultimate issue where it's the most global challenge that we face. So I'm also really excited about the intersection of sort of human behavior and technology, and that's sort of driven a lot of my work too in the energy space.
That's awesome. Good job, Jeff.
Thanks, Quinn.
So yeah, for me, I studied sustainability when I was in college. I did a study abroad in India, and there's only 13 of us, so it was a super tight-knit group, and we studied sustainability through the lens of the study of ecology, the study of spirituality, easy to do in India, and then we studied intentional communities, which is so fascinating because when you really look at sustainability, if folks can live in tighter knit communities, it really comes to life. So yeah, after that, I just started looking for what I could do to make a difference in the world, and had a background building houses with my dad in New England, and so just plugged into my skills around building and came up with the idea to do building material reuse, and then went to Evergreen State College. If people know, Evergreen's super cool because you can create your own curriculum there. And so mine was a business plan for building deconstruction. And so I did that for a while, then teamed up with Habitat for Humanity to start what they call a restore. And then so that just kind of started my entrepreneurial adventures. And so Reuse is my third startup. So it's contagious.
For me, it's a lot less direct, and it's a lot much more of a different path. It's more of a personal path, where I was working in restaurant industry, and I just saw so much waste. So I just didn't want to continue that cycle. There's so much saran wrap that's getting used every day. There's so much food waste that's getting used every day, or that's getting tossed every day. So it's more so a personal choice when I started the business that I want to do things better if I can. Whether it's little things like I actually take home all the recycling that we go through. Most of our garbage ends up being recycling, through jugs or cartons or other things that we can hopefully recycle, or cans. So it's more so personal choice and using that, and then trying to apply it to my personal life rather than building a business around it, but is trying to, as we're in a food manufacturing business, try to do the best we can, which I think most people don't. They just want whatever's easiest or whatever is tied to the bottom line. So, yeah.
So in living specifically here in Hawaii, what do you each think is the biggest hurdle for sustainability?
You want to start in the middle? Mix it up?
Sure. Gosh, I mean, it's sort of hard to pick a little bit because, we've got the climate crisis, which is just existential. But what I'm most familiar with is, of course, the waste issue. Does anyone follow the kind of landfill news and what's going on with Wahiwa and all that? No? A little bit? Okay. So the landfills were supposed to close years ago, and it's a challenging thing because they're supposed to site a new landfill, but there's so many restrictions on where one could go, with good reason. It's got to be, away from residential sites, away from conservation land, all that. And so there's just very little options. And so the mayor, I think it was in December, they did a press conference and no one knew about it, and they just announced the spot in Wahiwa, which is above the aquifer. And so there's all these, concerns around our water after Red Hill and everything. So people are like, what? And so it's just a real crux for the community because we have such a big development in construction industry. And in fact, where we're sitting, there was buildings that went to the landfill. I think some of it was concrete and was recycled, so that's good. But a third of our waste is construction and demolition material, 600,000 tons of debris every year. So what do we do with that as an island community? There's just a finite capacity for landfills. And so that's why we focus on cultivating circular economy to create alternatives to landfilling. And also, just then you have a benefit of having resources that come out of it that are already here. So just makes a lot of sense. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So you asked barriers.
Yeah.
And to me, I guess what comes to mind, two barriers. One, and this might sound trite, but honestly, like a deficiency of imagination. We, often we do these things a certain way, and this is how we're going to do it, and it's hard to imagine like how the world is going to change, and yet it's changing. It's going to change. I mean, if we went back 20 years, 25 years, and looked at what we had today, some of it would be unrecognizable. So just having that, what do you call it, beginner's mind, right? Mm-hmm. That open curiosity of what could be and making it happen. Certainly for clean energy in the climate space, we need imagination and we need to think differently. The story I like to share is the island of Kauai, which is run by a different utility than Hawaiian Electric. It's a cooperative over there, meaning that if you pay your energy bill, you're a member of this cooperative, you get to vote for the board of directors, the profits sort of circulate on the island. So that has freed them up to be a little more innovative and imaginative. They used to have just single-digit renewables. They were mostly reliant on oil for electricity. But about 12 years ago, they started investing heavily in large solar and storage and doing some really interesting things on their grid. Today, they're nearly 70% renewable. Most sunny days, for about 5 hours, they run on nothing but 100% renewable energy. That's crazy. That has overturned the narrative in people's heads of like what's possible. But what's really cool is for the last 8 months, they have the lowest rates in the state for residential electricity and the highest reliability. So the old narrative that renewable energy is great, but let's be honest, it's not going to power our modern economy and we can't rely on it. We'll have blackouts and it's expensive. Old thinking. And we just need to. And you'd be surprised. You talk to lawmakers or decision leaders, and they still have those old narratives. So that deficiency of imagination, I think, is one of our biggest challenges. And then one other one is just incumbency of existing businesses. And this happens a lot on islands for good reason. But you have old institutions that take root, and they're really tough to move. And they have old patterns of doing things. And so for a startup, for an entrepreneur, it's sometimes hard to break into that. And hard to move these, kind of big aircraft carrier institutions. And they sometimes create, their own like ecosystem around them, right? So having the ability to break through that incumbency and have new ideas is critical.
So real quick, Jeff, before we move on, for students, what advice do you have on how they can kind of cultivate that out-of-the-box thinking, that beginner's mindset, imagination?
Again, it's going to sound trite, but yeah, following your passions. Like what really drives you and motivates you? I mean, if you're starting a company or have an idea or invention, there's some spark there, right? And then challenging your assumptions all the time. I'm now turning into an old guy, and so I realized that I fall, ideas I had 10 years ago, I'm still clinging to. So I heard a phrase once, you're supposed to rent your ideas and buy your something. But so much of us, we have an idea and we buy into it, but we should hold on to those loosely and expect to be surprised.
For me, what I've seen in the industry for barriers is, I think just the infrastructure isn't as easy and readily available as I would have liked, or as people would have liked. And I think if it was there, I have no idea what the background is on it, but I think people would be much more readily available to use that. Most restaurants and businesses that I've been to don't have a recycling center or don't have a recycling bin. They just have those huge, big green dump bins. So I think if there was an infrastructure there, people would gladly use it. It's just the ease of it, as well as maybe, I don't know. So I think that's one thing that could change in the industry that would help a lot and be a lot better, because a lot of these restaurants and stuff are using, big tin cans that can be recycled, other jugs that can be recycled. So I think that could definitely help. That's just on my small scale, personal level of what I've seen in the restaurant and food manufacturing industry.
So This specifically is for Quinn. Quinn, you mentioned circular economy. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what exactly circular economy is and why that's so important in Hawaii.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Folks can look up the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. There's a whole field of study around the circular economy. But there's like 3 things that we like to talk about with it. One is designing out waste and pollution, and just in everything that we do. And so, when architects design buildings, for example, I'm sure there was some thought in this building. We should find out what the principles were with Hunt Development, all those folks. And then keeping products and material in use is another really important part of the circular economy. So that's kind of what we do, is like, if it's reusable, don't throw it out. It's really basic. And everyone's like, oh, what an innovative idea. But in fact, in the 50s, they did it. It was just like what happened here. There was a place called Tajiri Lumber, and they had a lumber yard on Dillingham and did what we do. So it's just bringing it back to that, keeping products, material in use. And then there's part of the circular economy is also regenerating natural systems. So think about like some of the conservation work that you see happening and how critical that is to our natural environment, and also with the natural systems, like people like to study the ahupua'a model, because if you think about ahupua'as, it was a total circular economy. You could just live on the ahupua'a and not need anything. And in fact, I believe there was like so much sustenance. It was just like incredible. So with similar populations that we have now. So yeah, and I think a big barrier, like Jeff was saying, is like the paradigms around how we do things. And so I'm really glad that we've been able to we relocated our facility. So if you haven't been, it's across the street from the stadium, but it's like a store where you go and everything's used, and now we have a bunch of stuff from All-in-One, a hotel. So people are starting to see, oh wow, there's circularity to the way that we're renewing the built environment, and so I hope that kind of helps our general society and our community understand what's possible. I don't know, I hope that covers it, Faith. Our director of fundraising and communications is here. That's why I'm so nervous.
So you mentioned the ahupua'a system and how it can be very abundant, very self-sustaining, but there was also a huge element of collaboration between ahupua'a. So what do you think is the role of collaboration in solving, especially collaboration across different organizations and different industries, in solving and addressing climate issues?
That's for Jeff.
Sure, I'll take a swing at it. It's definitely not it's not a spectator sport. It's also not a solo gig. The only way we're going to move forward on all of these issues is working together. The organization I'm working with now is, we're calling it Climate Hawaii. It's part of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. And our tagline is transformative collaboration. And the idea is, after living in advocacy world for so long with nonprofits, it was fun to go down to the legislature and be, I don't want to say righteous because I feel like we were right, but yes, we were, advocating for stuff, pushing for stuff. Sometimes the business community would come out and oppose it, and there'd be this conflict and tension, and we'd have to work through that and try to get some optimal outcome. It was never optimal, it was always suboptimal. So with this organization, we're trying to do things a little different and have those difficult conversations and bring everyone to the table and see how we can navigate this change together and make sure there are outcomes that work for the existing business community, for the future business community, for communities in general, while also staying within the boundaries that we've set for ourselves for the environment here in Hawaii. So it's sort of an experiment. It takes a lot to get folks to come to the table and let go of their agenda and their positions and try to move toward some sort of a compromise or an area where we can at least agree. But we think it's necessary because this is a time-bound challenge, climate change right now. So if we don't win soon, we don't win at all. So we really need to have some new tools to tackle it. So yeah, collaboration is key.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Collaboration is also important in our industry, or in the food manufacturing industry, connecting local farms and local growers to the food that we eat and the food that we produce here. Again, changing mindsets is very important. Things like buying not super perfect fruits all the time, fruits that, have maybe a little bruise or a scuff or something that's just not picture perfect, doesn't go to a store. It gets tossed out most of the time, which is really sad. There's a lot of people that are working on that space and trying to connect people, such as myself, to those farms that are going to toss that out, because we're just going to blend it up and puree it anyway, so it doesn't really matter what the outside looks like as long as the inside is still good. That's what we care about. So that's where collaboration really works with us, connecting the farmers to those food manufacturers, as well as just general consumers in general, and changing their mindset of what is edible and what appeals to us, not just only the perfect store-bought, like shiny, whatever fruit or vegetables. So I think that's important.
I think, did you want to, yeah, I think they covered it on that.
Okay.
Thanks. What do you got for us, Harvey?
Excellent. So why don't we talk a little bit about what advice you have for students and young people that are interested in kind of getting involved, but maybe just don't know where to start? And anyone can go first.
Yeah, so having gone through that myself, I'm always encouraging folks to demystify the business planning process. So if you have an idea, get it down on paper and get support and kind of flushing it out. Because sometimes you can kind of articulate all these things, but until you sort of get it into a business plan format, it doesn't really take its full form. So, and we entered ours into a business plan competition, which is a cool experience because then you can kind of see what other people think of it and all that sort of thing. The other thing that we did a lot in the early parts of the organization was prototyping or pilot project, so just to kind of get a little taste and it informs of what you might do in the future. So sometimes it's let's do this, build it huge, and if you can just bite off a small piece and just see how it goes, that can do a lot. So those are my pieces of advice. What do you got?
I agree with everything you said as well. I'm much more of the mindset of a lean startup mentality. I started just one machine in a little kitchen space in Kaneohe. And I would definitely say start there rather than trying to take out a loan, get a multi-million-dollar investment, all this stuff. Start small, prove the concept, and then build from there is what I personally like to do, or what I did. I did focus groups before I started, just with prototypes of my product, different pops, and seeing if people actually liked them. I just got strangers. I was working in a restaurant industry and just asking random customers, do you want to come to a popsicle tasting and give feedback at Kapilani Park? And people showed up and they did, and they gave feedback, and we built from there. We did multiple focus groups, see if people actually liked the product, would actually pay for the product, what they did like, what they didn't like, and then built from there. And then I started, once people gave me feedback and I tweaked everything and people were more and more positive feedback, then I thought I could actually launch. But again, launched pretty lean.
Great advice. Thinking about it beyond just business, but engaging in any way, I think my advice would be just get out there and get out of your comfort zone. Be provocative. Engage people. Reach out to Walter Dodds, ask for advice, or anyone. People love sharing advice, that's for sure. Reach out to Quinn. Ask him for all of his secrets. I'm thinking of my story, and I was studying to be an engineer. I was interested in kind of more social activism stuff. I was living in Hawaii doing an engineering internship, but I really wanted to be a writer. And at the time, we had a weekly free newspaper. Do you remember the Honolulu Weekly back in the day? Great paper, erstwhile. But I wanted to be a writer, and I reached out to the editor and I said, hey, can I do a piece on, I don't know, solar energy. I want to do something on solar energy. And she said, great, send me your portfolio. My portfolio consisted of like some high school papers I'd written. And she said, yeah, no thanks. But then I just got lucky, and a couple weeks later, she's like, something fell through. You said you had a piece on solar energy. And I said, yes, I do. And so I frantically wrote a piece on solar energy, and she published it. And all of a sudden, I was a writer. They paid 10 cents a word back then. But it was because of that opportunity that it opened up doors for things later. So had I not put myself into this uncomfortable position, I would not be sitting here today. So yeah, I think that would be my main advice. Get uncomfortable.
Excellent advice, for sure. Let's kind of flip it around now. And how can we better engage students and young people, and really just anyone, in sustainability efforts, particularly maybe if they aren't thinking about them, maybe don't want to be involved? Really, how can we reach out to people better?
Well, over a popsicle, of course.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I'm doing is I'm a guest speaker at Chaminade at some of their classes, and just sort of trying to open some eyes, like we are here tonight, about what's possible with folks' careers. And there's so much innovation that needs to happen, and we're just kind of at a really important time where everyone needs to come together to protect our environment and our community. So I'd just like to share that. And I think also just we've had a lot of folks join us on our team that may not have known that they really had a passion around the environment, and once they start taking buildings apart and saving all the material, you start to realize, wow, I just deconstructed a whole house and saved a truckload of redwood that if it was dumped, it would be lost forever. I mean, it's just so then it just inspires folks to continue. That's sort of what happened with me too. So not sure if that answers your question, but what do you guys got?
I guess I would just say education, just putting it out there more and trying to do real world applications. And just, I guess in-person events and more talks and education in general is just a good idea. The more and more we spread the word about it and talk about it, I think the more relevant it becomes, rather than just pushing it under the rug or putting it to another day, which is what our ancestors have done. I would just say trying to talk about it more, have more conversations about it, would be my thoughts.
I mean, your question is, how do we provide those opportunities, right? And I'll admit, it's sometimes a challenge, particularly when you're running a small nonprofit. Like someone says, oh, I want an intern. It's great. But then you realize taking that person on board, even if it's an unpaid position, requires a lot of resources to manage and provide meaningful experience. I'll admit I've had my share of students who haven't been the best, and it's has been kind of a net negative for the organization. But then some that have been spectacular, and then we hired. So I think it is on us to take a risk and to make those opportunities available. And to kind of pay it forward that way for thinking of opportunities that will be meaningful.
So for the spectacular intern, so what are some of the things that stood out about them?
It's always about initiative, I think. Someone who can just can anticipate questions and answer them. If you're working for anyone, or you're an intern, or getting your feet wet, coming to the supervisor and saying, here's the challenge we're facing, here are 3 ideas, let me know what you think is best, as opposed to, we have a problem, and putting that all on the person. So having that kind of mindset of problem solving, taking initiative, going above and beyond, all of that really pays off. But yeah, the ideal intern is one who comes in and just, solves problems, figures stuff out. Maybe acts and apologizes later instead of asking for permission.
Nice.
I mean, not just that, but that's probably the most important thing. I'd say just the baseline is showing up on time every day, ready to work. It sounds simple, but honestly, that's the first thing a person needs to do. And if you just do that, that's, everything else can be taught. But showing up on time with a good attitude and a willingness to work the whole day, you'll be fine wherever you go, honestly. I believe in that.
Half of life is showing up.
Yeah.
What's the other half?
I gotta ask Woody Allen, I don't know.
So for our next kind of topic, for each of you, how does resilience planning factor into your work, and what can communities do to prepare for climate impacts?
Let's stock up on popsicles, Jeff. Over to you.
Not if they all, go extinct because of temperature change.
So this is a very, germane and timely. There are a number of bills pending this week. This is the last week of legislative session, and the governor created a climate advisory team, sort of post-Lahaina, to look at our vulnerabilities here in Hawaii and how we can strengthen our capacity to respond to the climate change. Unfortunately, a lot of those bills haven't made it very far because there have been just craziness with the budget and the federal stuff that's happening, and sort of this circle the wagons approach. Because we're not sure what the budget's going to look like given the federal changes. So that's been somewhat disappointing, but we do hope that we're going to pass a measure this week that uses a portion of our existing tourism tax and dedicates that to increasing climate resilience. And that could take the form of a Strengthen Hawaii Homes program, something that we're really excited about. Most homes in Hawaii, blows your mind to think about, but the roof isn't really even attached to the house itself. They were built before we had these hurricane codes. So if we get whacked by a hurricane, or when we get whacked by that hurricane, it could be a really, really bad situation of just people's houses without a roof, and then we overwhelm our shelters and the like. So just an ounce of prevention is worth tons of cure in this case, and so we're hoping to get some of these programs adopted. Another one is resilience hubs, or creating these readiness centers, which should help build community during blue skies, but then they'll be there when we need them when something happens. And there's some great folks that are already engaged with this. Janice Ikeda with Vibrant Hawaii has been working on Hawaii Island, now over here as well, helping to kind of establish these, and really finding that the most resilient communities are those where you know your neighbors, you have a network. That's a lot more powerful than having a bunch of water and sandbags. But knowing who is going to check on you, who you're going to check on, really creates the resilience that we need.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we got to start crawling into houses and putting hurricane clips in? Wow, awesome, cool. So we've been modeling, so the EPA rolled out like a disaster preparedness model which focused on waste reduction, because they find that like when there's a natural disaster or something, their landfills fill up, and so we just got hired for 2 phases at Kilauea Observatory to deconstruct buildings up there, because they all have to come down. The ground is too unstable. And so that's been really interesting to see, like it was specified in the project plans that the buildings had to be taken apart, and the Parks Department had an initial call and they said, listen everyone, we're not using the word demolition, we're using deconstruction. I was like, oh my God, someone else is saying that, because that's always what we say. So I thought that was a really cool turn of events. And I think we've done a good job kind of modeling what that looks like in terms of recovering material and denailing it and all these things that folks might not fully understand. That's just a little piece that we're working on. And then when there's a scare of a storm, everyone comes to reuse to get plywood, so that's always fun.
A little bit less relevant in my industry, or harder for me to think about, or not something I always think about, but it definitely affects us and climate change and all that stuff, because we're reliant on so many different ingredients. As well as if something happens here, then we try to source as many local ingredients as we can. So our infrastructure for that would be definitely affected. But yeah, I mean, everything ties back to the climate, and we're all going to be affected by it in one way, shape, or form.
I would just build on that a little bit, because this really gets back to entrepreneurship and thinking about how you can contribute. Just our capacity to provide here in Hawaii is so critical, because we are just absolutely dependent on that next ship coming in, not just for oil, but for food and for medical supplies. The state did a critical vulnerabilities analysis looking at what we actually, like if we lost a port, what would happen? And it's pretty scary. I mean, we literally have days of medical supplies, maybe a week or two of food, maybe 3 weeks of fuel. So the more we have a capacity to provide for ourselves locally, the stronger we'll be.
So Jeff, kind of going off on that, what are some of your thoughts on ways to build that capacity and ways to kind of be more resilient locally?
Yeah, I mean, thinking like our food production is somewhat 95%, whatever the number is imported. So a lot of it's barrier busting and breaking through what's making it difficult for folks to farm. And then it's cultural too. I mean, we really have to have that behavioral norm of eating local. So when you have those opportunities, we all make these choices every day, probably 2 or 3 times a day, or more often for some of us. Like thinking about where are you voting with your dollar, and can you support local? Thinking about some of the barriers too. I'm really excited about these ideas because again, time is of the essence now, and we face so many challenges. I'm bullish on renewable energy, but solar farms take up the same land that we need for farming. They both love flat, sunny land. That's a challenge. How can we make that an opportunity? They're doing some really cool testing outside of Mililani, looking at agrivoltaics, or farming between the solar panels. And so far the results have been astounding. They're finding that certain things grow better with solar panels than without. To me, that's really exciting. If we can unlock farming and ag and lower the cost of that because of solar, it could just be revolutionary for Hawaii. So I'm excited about, again, thinking outside the box and really like, gosh, are these competing, or can they actually be synergistic? So thinking of these barriers and thinking about how we can tunnel through and come up with innovative solutions.
Brilliant.
So thinking about ways that we each individually can kind of try to make a difference. Voting with our dollars is one for sure. What are some other kind of tips or advice that you have on how we can work individually to be more sustainable, and then also ways that we maybe collaboratively can work together to be more sustainable as a group?
What do you got?
Reuse Hawaii. I think that's great. I was just talking, or we were just talking, and I just knocked down some walls, and now I have a place instead of the dump to take it to that I didn't even think about before. So I guess just in your personal life, think about how you can reuse things. Think if you really need to buy something new. And just take that, not just in your personal life, but going forward professionally, hopefully.
Right, and that goes back to what you said earlier, Justin, about education and just talking about these things, and getting the word out about Reuse Hawaii and about these different opportunities kind of can be a big impact.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the collaboration piece always comes up, and we're really excited about our workforce development piece, because we're finding there's all these other organizations that we can tie into that really bring us to the next level around our workforce development. So in May, we start training and employing folks that work at, or live at the Kauhales. These are these alternative shelters that the governor set up. So it's just a great, we're just kind of getting all the stakeholders involved to support these people, because how do you get out of homelessness without some sort of employment situation? So just trying to put all the pieces together with that. Love it.
Yeah, maybe just real quick, Quinn, can you describe the workforce development program that you folks have?
Yeah, so in 2020, we started a partnership with Kupu through the Kupu Ainakor program, and brought on 5 interns. We thought, oh, this is sort of a neat thing, and so we started expanding it and working with other organizations. A lot of collaboration with the city and county Work Hawaii program, and then we got some federal funding this year to do this cohort-based workforce development program. So we're doing 6-person cohorts that go through all parts of our organization at Reuse Hawaii to learn about the retail, learn about tree milling and material processing. They learn about deconstruction, some woodworking, possibly some machinery and truck driving and that kind of thing. So there's this sort of well-rounded experience that folks can get. And then there's some wraparound services where they get help with resume building and finding jobs after their time with us. It's really exciting. We do other stuff with furlough programs. It's amazing. Like, you get out of prison and no one wants to hire you. So, and it turns out they're like some of the greatest employees you'd want to bring on. It's just there's a stigma there, and so we support those folks too, and give them opportunities and just to turn a new leaf, and also have a community too, because sometimes the prison and jails, it's not the community that you want, and so it's just been really cool to see them. Faith knows what I'm talking about. Just having a community of people that support them and they can be a part of. So so more to come on that. It's developing. It
sounds like a really awesome program. In addition to that, do you also take student interns outside of the Kupus?
Let's see. Yeah, we've had some. We have an intern that's starting. It's like a nonprofit administration experience. So you get to work with Michaela, our director of administration, and learn about like the bookkeeping and all that kind of thing. So more of office work, but and then we had someone through Shaman do a similar experience. Those are usually short. It's like I can't remember. Couple 3 months. So.
And then I think, Jeff, you didn't get a chance to share kind of your advice for how individually we can be more sustainable.
Sure. Yeah, Quinn, I love this story about putting former folks that were locked up to work. It's great. I think two thoughts on things you can do. For me, I feel like I'm on my computer all day, or I'm in meetings, or in the car, or kind of always surrounded by civilization. So getting out in the wild, getting out in the woods, getting out in the water is just always a great way to just remind yourself that you're a living thing on this planet. And so thinking about your relationship with Earth, I think can reprogram some things in your mind. But then collaboratively, I think we need to challenge each other too. And this is part of norm setting. I think social norms are the most powerful tool we have to really change underlying culture. So again, engaging in those conversations. Some might be uncomfortable, but they're important to have. And making sure that we all understand the stakes for anything, for sustainability, but also for equity and everything else that we face.
So in kind of changing the societal norms, change often is pretty slow, but especially right now in terms of technology, there's been a lot of what you might consider disruptive change. And that's kind of what we need really to address a lot of these climate issues and sustainability issues. So what are your thoughts on that?
Never asked.
Yeah, right. No, certainly. I mean, disruptive change. Yeah, like I shared at the beginning, things are happening, whether we like it or not. And AI is just opening up a whole new crazy can of worms. And it's on us whether we want to move forward into this future by design or by default. And it's going to happen one of those two ways. And default is messy, expensive, unequitable, inefficient. The example I like to share, it makes me want to tear my hair out, is the state built a new rental car center at the airport. I don't know if any of you have seen this. It's this huge rental car center. It costs like $400 million or something like that. There is zero electric vehicle charging in that in that rental car center. And yet we know that all vehicles are going to be electric or zero emission in the near future. So it's decisions like that where they decide to go by default, and it's going to be very expensive to undo that, to tear it up, to put in wires, to put in what they need to do. But this change is happening. So thinking about what's your role in shaping that future that we want to create for our families and for our future, and how can we make sure it's done in a manner that reflects our values. So navigating that disruptive change and just acknowledging that it's happening and coming. And then using the opportunity too, because Hawaii, I think, is the perfectly positioned place to kind of show the world what this looks like. We've been out front on a lot of energy issues. We were the first state in the nation with a 100% renewable energy law. Since then, 13 states have adopted very similar laws, and now over half of the U.S. population lives in a state with a mandate for 100% clean energy. But that was because Hawaii chose to be that first penguin to jump in the water and test the waters and show that it was safe. So kind of providing that social proof that we can do this. I think a lot of policy solutions, technology solutions, business ideas can be de-risked in Hawaii so they can scale elsewhere. And I think that's our role in the cosmos here.
There it is.
Indeed. So I think we just have a couple of minutes left here. So if there's any kind of closing thoughts, maybe we can start with Justin.
Sure. Be proactive, not reactive, I think is kind of the general theme of things, not just in your personal life, but in your work life. I think it goes a long way. That's what I always tell my employees, don't just come to me when things are out or when things are, going wrong. Just, spot the problems when things are running low, let us know so we can reorder them, that kind of stuff. So always be proactive rather than reactive. And that goes for climate change as well. I think we'd be a lot better position if we thought that way a long time ago.
Nice. Jeff and I are part of a leadership development program called Omidyar Fellows, and it's all about affecting change in the world. And what was surprising to me is the first thing they taught you is how to take care of yourself. So you can't do anything if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's my advice.
That's great. I was just thinking, what's a nightmare scenario that Justin faces? And the only one I can think of is the freezer's broken.
Power outage.
Power outage. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything more brilliant to add at all, except going back to what I shared before. I mean, I think it's on all of us to kind of get out of our comfort zones and follow our curiosities. To me, when I interview, I always ask, what are you curious about? And when that question throws people off, I already have an idea, right? But if people are glad you asked, and they can dive into it, then you have someone who's really kind of thinking differently and imaginative and passionate about something. So, yeah, stay curious.
All right. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and open it up to the audience for any questions that you folks have.
Do you see incorporating AI into any of your businesses?
Oh, it's like a weekly discussion at this point. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, just to how much is changing around that. So yeah, definitely some of our writing. I think soon probably some of our bookkeeping and accounting stuff, and who knows what else. What about you?
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. I personally use it just in a very small way, but mainly for Instagram, for writing the posts, or at least helping me write the posts. I think that's how I use it the most, but I know other small businesses that utilize it basically as like a personal assistant and like building out like a project for it to kind of work on how do I accomplish that in X amount of days, and it'll just write you a step-by-step, day-by-day thing, and like you kind of just check in on it and update it. And I've had people, do like entire like big month-long or multi-month-long projects using AI. So it's definitely out there. I personally need to learn more about it myself and use it and utilize it a lot more. But it's definitely going to be an amazing tool, or a very strong tool for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've been using it a lot at the legislature. If there's 70 pieces of testimony, it's easy to just upload that PDF and quickly get a digest. That saves a lot of time instead of just weeding through stuff. I read this hilarious article the other day. I don't know how many folks use like ChatGPT, and when you get a response, you say thank you. Does anyone do that? Apparently, this costs ChatGPT tens of millions of dollars a year. People saying please and thank you, because when you do that, you've just like prompted another cycle for the computers to run. So the guy, Sam Altman or whatever, is like, we know people do this. It's great. It actually shows that. I mean, I do it because I know they're going to take over someday, so I might as well be nice. But I just think it's hilarious that it's like creating all this,
Yeah, it definitely is something you have to think about in using AI, the costs, but it's also important, right, for the training data to have that kind of politeness and that grace. So one thing that you can do, just thinking about little ways to be more sustainable, is include it all in your initial prompt.
Please
do X, thank you.
So
then you don't add it in, but it's still getting that training that you're trying to incorporate.
Nice.
Other questions?
I have a question for pop culture. Did you ever consider the competition with Shave Ice in Hawaii, particularly?
The reason I went into the pop industry is, to me, the product is something that hasn't been innovated and changed too much in its entirety. When I was going out to the store and looking like what other popsicle brands out there, and at least the major grocery stores, you have like the more innovative ones are like Outshine, which is basically the same thing, just using healthier like organic fruit or something like that, but it's the same product. So that's kind of why I went into it. I thought it was something different, something creative, something pre-packaged, so it's easy to distribute. In my mind, the business sense worked out, and I can do both popsicles and ice cream bars. So I have creativity, a little bit more creativity than just going into ice cream or going into Shave Ice. I just thought it was a better business model and a more scalable business model.
Do you think you could make natural Shave Ice syrups?
Yeah, we do try to make a lot of our syrups in-house. I don't know about natural Shave Ice syrups. I haven't applied them to Shave Ice, but we do try to make as many of the syrups as we can in-house by like cooking down fruits, or there's a hibiscus one where we make our own syrup using hibiscus flowers, stuff like that.
Maybe real quick, Justin, for people who aren't familiar with pop culture, talk a little bit about your creation process and how the pops come into being and the different fun physics you do.
Maybe you toured my facility 2 weeks ago. A lot of R&D. That goes with any kind of food product, but just a lot of trial and error. It's an expensive process and not the most sustainable process because there is waste. We do pops with fillings with multiple bases. I think that's something a little bit different, and puts us in a different category, because like we have like the Cookie Monster one, which uses like fillings, and we make our own cookie dough, and then we also don't use any artificial coloring in our pops. So like the blue comes from butterfly pea flour. All the other colors in our pops are from the ingredients themselves. We have to deal with density because of fillings. Whereas ice cream, you can kind of, as it comes out of the machine, it's aerated, so you can kind of just fold it in. Whereas our pops, we have to think about that, so we have to have things like weighing it down if we're doing a filling or something that's really tight to the mold. As well as with the multiple base ones, we have to do different pouring techniques to get the effect that we want to do, whether it's a layered thing or a swirl effect or whatever. So that kind of came back from some of my experience in bartending, making drinks.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's where that part came from.
Yeah. Part bartender, part barista, part shave ice maker.
Yeah, it's all kind of linked. All of my culmination of different work that I've done in the past. I've done many different jobs, and they've all kind of put me to where I am.
How do you find joy in the workplace? How do you lead people to want to help the planet, sustainability, and everything?
How do you find joy in the workplace? And then what was the other part?
Like, how do you lead people to want to inspire people?
How do you lead people and inspire them? Yeah. Oh, wow. All right, I'll start. Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do is like bring people into like all the kind of nitty gritty, even if it's like not like part of their role, you know, like just kind of fill them in on all the details, just because then they can have a fuller picture about what's going on and feel more empowered and engaged in what in the organization. And so that's been got to be clear about like where their lines of authority are, but so that's another challenge. But and then you know, I think there's something to be said about giving folks some autonomy and the work that they do, so that they can really see the impacts of what they do, and supporting them in doing that. So my big test, actually Faith and I were just talking about this, is when you come to work, if you're stoked to see the people that you work with, that's like a real test that you're in the right place. So just always kind of watching out for that and forming the team. It can be hard because like we've had to rearrange the team and it's not always easy, but the team makeup is like pretty critical. And so yeah, just kind of making sure the recipe's right.
That's a great point. Yeah, and good tie-in. I think too, keeping things fairly light, like not taking things all that seriously. Even the heavier the work gets, I think you need more of that humor. I forget who said it. Humor is hope's companion in arms. So when you're working on these tough issues, having some sense of, lightheartedness, even if it's serious. But the other thing I've already forgotten. It was really profound too. It's gone. How do you motivate? How do you inspire people? Yeah, gone. It'll come back.
What about you?
Yeah, being a good boss is just being lighthearted, not taking things too seriously, not trying to make a big deal of any mistakes. Most mistakes can be. What I tell my employees is communication is key, especially in the food industry. If you make a mistake, let me know. That's the most important thing, or let somebody, like the manager, know, because we don't want to get anybody sick. It's very, sensitive. But, if you act out and you lash out against people that make mistakes, then they're never going to want to tell you. So if you're just kind-hearted during those mistakes and the hardest times, I think your team will have a lot of faith in you, and they won't be scared to tell you when they've made a mistake. And they'll believe in you and know that you got their back when they do. I think that's very important. And then inspiring people, or like what brings me joy. I think I used to do a lot of farmers markets. We still do kakako every week, but seeing all like the little kids come by, we've been doing the farmers markets for like over 4 years now. So seeing these little kids grow and have our product and bring smiles to people's faces that way is always inspiring, and that's kind of why I like doing the job, is making people happy.
Easy to do with obstacles, you remember?
Yeah.
I mean, easy to do with you guys are like changing the world and doing good in the world.
Justin shook it loose. I think celebrating those victories too, no matter where it is. So if you're working like at a nonprofit, it could be an external victory, like wow, we passed a bill. It could be an internal thing, like we received that grant. But finding those, even the small victories, and celebrating them. At Blue Planet Foundation, we were founded by this guy Hank Rogers. If you know that name, he brought the game Tetris to the world. So we were in the same office as the Tetris folks downtown. And being around them, I learned about this idea of the reward schedule, which is no big surprise. But when you have a game, you need this reward schedule that gives you that dopamine hit every once in a while, but not too often. Because if it's too often, you get bored. If it's not often enough, you get frustrated. So they dialed it in perfectly with that game that just when you get frustrated, you'll get another line. It's like the slot machine, right? So you kind of need that with organizations too. Like if you're going slogging through something, you need that little victory to kind of keep people's spirits up.
Wow. That's awesome.
So I know we were kind of talking about like engaging with people in the communities. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts or advice about kind of like marrying the economy and sustainability, especially kind of when it's kind of already like the preconceived thought that those two can't go hand in hand.
I'll tackle that one first. They absolutely go hand in hand. In fact, the words economy and ecology share the same root, eco. Eco is Greek for home. So ecology means to study one's home, economy means to manage one's home. So they're very much, to me, hand in hand, particularly in Hawaii, where the environment is our economy. I mean, we're so dependent on this beauty, this natural place, our water supply, everything. So no, I think we really have to push back when people somehow, I mean, certainly there's tensions in places, but the only way we have a sustainable economy is with a healthy environment.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we tried to do early on was make sure we had program revenue from what we did. So like we leveraged the building industry as well as the demand for building materials to create revenue. And so we fulfill our mission at the same time of bringing in revenue. $3 million a year come in because we're fulfilling our mission. So yeah, I think we've been able to figure that out, but depending on what you're doing, it can be a lot harder. We just kind of figured out the sweet spot. Maybe we should do popsicles.
No, I think these guys have nailed it. Yeah, I don't have too much to add besides that. I think there was another.
Yeah, I think we had.
Yeah, a couple.
You mentioned the state is, we have that RPS goal, the renewable portfolio standard goal, becoming net zero by 2045. And you also mentioned this week there's a lot of changes going on with legislation. I was wondering, how do you think the current administration is going to affect that? Is there any way in your companies where the administration might change your current goals?
Jeff, you should talk about that.
And just for clarification, when you say administration, are you talking governor administration or that one? We won't mention names. Honestly, I'll just be frank. It's super hard. I mean, there's so much uncertainty, and it's not only just the fact that this individual doesn't believe in climate change and is yanking all the funding for programs and incentives that will help us make this transition, but it's also just the massive disruption that's being created that's causing uncertainty and instability that's making it really hard just to plan and do things. So all of that, and not to mention tariffs and whatever else, unfortunately climate is still one of those like third, fourth tier things. People are thinking about putting food on the table, affording a home, having a good job, and then maybe climate. So it's really difficult when there's so much uncertainty and things like that. So I have some optimism, just because I'm a optimistic person, that there's a lot of momentum with our transition. It's going to happen. Again, I come back to this design or default, and we really have to make choices today that align with our clean energy future tomorrow. And this too shall pass. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. I think Jeff's got it. Anything from you?
No, I mean, tariffs are going to affect everybody, and business business planning is very difficult with the current administration. Businesses operate on like a 5-10 year trajectory or anticipation, and it's really hard to do so in the current environment. And I think that's affecting all businesses because we can't plan ahead.
Okay, I think we have one last question over here.
So you guys talked a lot about sort of changing social norms or raising awareness about sustainability. A lot of that is thinking about how we as consumers, as people, might treat sustainability. But I wonder, is there an appetite sort of in the business world? Is there changes in business norms for the business side to approach sustainability? Or is it really mostly on consumers ourselves to try to change our behavior?
I think it's both. I mean, really, like, everybody has to change, both businesses and consumers. We both contribute to, pollution and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually been doing this for long enough where I can really see the difference in the business community. 2 weeks ago, the Kamehameha School's development department invited me to talk for like a whole half an hour with another waste reduction person that also took a half an hour. So they invested like a lot of time, and one of the people there asked, the same question basically you're asking. And I was like, 10 years ago, Kamehameha Schools wasn't investing this amount of time into educating staff. So I thought that was really good. And then, there's more companies and developers that are really thinking about what they need to do for the environment and for the community overall. So it's pretty great to see. I mean, it's not not as widespread as we'd like, but we're seeing that folks care more, and it's really great. So hoping to that spreads and more companies kind of see their responsibilities.
Yeah, I'll agree with the both and for sure. I mean, companies exist to provide services and goods to customers, and customers can kind of, again, vote with their dollar and decide. I think the recent example, I don't know how much of this is true, but I'd like to think it's true. I mean, Target rolled back a lot of their DEI stuff over pressure, and they've been hurting the last couple months. So it's working when people are, kind of voting again with their dollars. At our organization, Climate Hawaii, again, this is sort of a collaboration of businesses and organizations. The audacious idea we had going in was, can we change some of those norms in Hawaii style, like, hey, we're going to do things different. We're living in this new climate era. We can behave differently. I've seen both types, some that are doing it on a transactional level, like we're doing this because we see it might be good for our image, or we'll slap our logo on this or whatever. And then there are some that are absolutely committed. They're doing it because it's the right thing to do, irrespective of maybe outcomes. And just one example, and I won't name names, but they're airlines. I was talking to the CEO of one airline, and I said, hey, do you have any plans to buy sustainable aviation fuel? They're now producing fuel. There's actually a mandate in Japan and in European Union to use the sustainable aviation fuel. It's a drop-in fuel. It's largely made of other biological materials like oils and things, but it's not fossil-based. So it's a little more expensive, though. So this CEO said, yes, we would love to use sustainable aviation fuel as soon as it's at the same price or cheaper than fossil. Great. All right. Way to show leadership and commitment. Whereas another airline, won't mention names, has set an internal goal for eliminating all fossil jet fuel or offsetting it with other activities. And they have invested company resources in next generation aircraft that will burn hydrogen. And they've lent an aircraft to a company to test it with this new fuel. So two very different approaches to sustainability. One saying, yeah, we'll do it when it's cheap. The other saying, we're all in. We're going to go by design, not by default.
Nice.
Awesome.